All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Soldier Stories podcast. My name is Mark Ross, and welcome to the podcast show. With me this morning, morning for me, uh, evening for you.
Yeah.
it's Yishay, Yishay,
Ishi.
Ron.
Yeah.
Yishay Ron.
Yishay Ron, and thank you so much, Mark, for having
Thank you
me
so
here.
much. Thank you so much. Yishay, you were a soldier of the Israeli army at one point, correct?
Yes, that is correct. I was serving in an elite unit in the Israeli army,
Okay.
and I'm following you, Mark. So if you want me to tell more, just or if you want it by questions, up to
Sure.
you.
All right. No problem. No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah. So I'm here because we are talking about PTSD and about my new book Dog, which came out in the US 1st of October.
Right.
It's the book theme is PTSD among veterans. It's a fiction book, but it's actually more or less similar to the path I walked and the injured I suffered.
Mhm.
Um, Dog deals with a Golani special unit in Israel, an officer that was participating in Pillars of Defense operation and came home from Gaza. And everything in his life is regular. He's a good-looking young man. He starts studying. He goes to Japan with his girlfriend. Everything is regular until it's not. And then one day everything collapsed, and he doesn't know what's happening to him. He can't recognize himself because of a dissociation. He looks in the mirror, he touches himself. He can't believe it's him. He suffers from anxiety, from panic attacks, from nightmares. And the only thing he understands that works for him to calm down those manifestations of PTSD is drinking and using drugs, which it's something a lot of the veterans, you and me knows probably, are doing. I myself was, for 15 years, I was basically 24/7 on alcohol or drugs of all kinds, but usually marijuana from morning
Mhm.
till I went to sleep and so on. And but the PTSD that my protagonist Geller suffers is hits him so bad that after a while those drugs does not medicate him anymore or does not protect him anymore. So he's moving toward hard drugs like heroin, because sometimes when we guys come from war or from any other incidents that damage our personality, our masculinity. We
Mm.
perceive ourselves as big, strong guys. Nothing can
Mm.
happen to us. We are
Mm.
like so strong. And then when something like this happens to us, suddenly we are shattered to million pieces, and
Yeah.
we cannot even admit it that we are injured.
Mm.
So we try to medicate ourselves and to cover it. And this
Yeah.
is what my protagonist in the book is doing: is shooting heroin, and then it's a ball of snow. He's going down the hill and he's losing everything. He finds himself in the street of Tel Aviv, living in a dump, and basically, this is the atmosphere of the book. Of course, there's a much complex plot. Geller he meets a dog. That's why the book is called Dog. And Geller meets a dog, a stray dog. There's actually two dogs in the book, two protagonists. Okay, one is Geller and the second one is a dog, and the dog is a two dog. One dog that is he meets in Gaza, and he remembers in his mind that one of his teammates shot this dog in the head and killed him, and he uses this perception or memory uh, to focus all his bad stuff, his bad memories from the things that he did and from the things he saw from the Palestinians he remember dead and from his friends being burned alive near his face, he as if forgot everything but remembers the dog. It's easier for him to have an animal rather than a human being to focus and put all his bad memory on. The second dog, which is the same but a little different, is the dog he meets in this dump in Tel Aviv, this stray dog, where it gives him some kind of the compassion that all of us needs, and looking for even the body worms when they sleep together, one near
Mm,
each other,
yeah.
and the friendship and the trust and that everything that dogs symbolize, and sometimes veterans with PTSD gets therapeutic dogs to treat them because it's an amazing animal. So this is basically the story. Of course, it's suspense book, getting complicated, and there's a murder, but we will not tell our listeners about. We will not ruin the book, but we can talk about my experiences and how did it influence my writing, my PTSD, how did I manage it, and where did it take me, my journey?
Yeah, I have, and that reminds me. I had a question I want to ask you. I know we in our initial conversation, I say, you mentioned that you were almost lynched.
Yeah,
Can
I had a few incidents while I was in the army. One of them was that I was um, we went into a Palestinian village where there was big riots, and my teammate didn't come at time. Okay, they should have. There were a force that should have rescue us, help us in a case where things get problem, and I was with another IDF soldier teammate of mine in a military jeep. We were like not undercover in the unit in this specific operation, and we were waiting for our undercover unit to get involved in this and take us out, but they delayed, and we were almost lynched. We had a mob coming with, irons and rocks and anything they could have, and it was like feeling as if we are about to die in like a matter of seconds. There
Mm.
were like hundreds of people, and our job was to stay waiting for friends, and like in the last moment, everything was happened, and but there were many other cases which I saw things that the mind is very hard to deal with it, and one of the worst thing that I experienced was in an operation where I shot by accident my teammate. Now is more or less fine. He got the bullets in his thigh, and it went almost through the knee. I was sure I injured him very, very badly at first because, I saw the knee with
What
all
made
the
you shoot him?
blood.
What made you
I
shoot
was
him?
I was shooting I was shooting a terrorist, like I was shooting, it was an operation, and he crossed
Oh,
my shooting line,
got it.
and I saw him fall. And
Mm,
since this moment, for me, time froze, It was
yeah.
like my teammates and my commander and the army people, they didn't know what's going on in my mind or in my heart. But for me, at first, I thought that maybe he got killed. I didn't know. I just saw him fall. And
Hmm.
later, when I ran to him, I saw that his knee is like I thought crushed out. I thought he will never walk. And I went with him to the hospital, and memory is amazing in those incidents because he remembers it differently. He didn't remember I came with him to the hospital, and it's crazy. And at the time, it happened more than 30 years ago. At the time, um, the army didn't relate to those incidents as something special, If the guy you shoot by accident is more or less fine, like he's injured but nothing too serious, so there's no investigation and there's no psychiatrist to talk with.
Right.
And in all my service, not even once, I've seen a psychiatrist or psychologist, and it was just to observe without the ability. I was a young man. I was 18, 19
Yeah.
years old, 20 years old. It's not like it's a boy. It's like someone that just finished high school. And the system did not know how to relate to those kind of incidents.
Uh-huh. So are you saying that in the Israeli army, there's no mental health services to help veterans or anybody?
No, no,
What?
I'm not saying that because first of all, there were always, but it was the 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 system was not tuned for the weakness, okay, of soldiers. They knew how to train us, how to draft us to special units, how to make us an officers or to make us an elite combat soldier. But they didn't know how to relate to the most common injury in the army, which is PTSD.
Right.
Now, I think it was the same with in the U.S. During the Vietnam War and maybe even later, and when so many people returned home and became homeless, and people thought they're crazy living in the forest with
Right.
guns and stuff, and you have so many movies dealing with those kinds of types of people that are living in the Vietnamese forest, in their mind, still
Their
seeing
mind.
what they saw. And I think it's the same with Israel. Only in the recent years, the system started to understand that first of all, you have to treat PTSD very quickly. Okay, so today the attitude changed a lot. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but it's much, much, much better than what it was during my time. And of course, there is psychologists in the army, psychiatric. Again, not in the best optimistic quantities and quality that should be to such a demanding system that takes young boys and girls and make them see and do things that the mind cannot handle sometimes.
Yeah.
And you can see that the numbers are crazy. All over the world, by the way. In the US, also thousands every year take on their life. In Israel, also, I know that since the last Gazan war with Israel, more than 70 soldiers took their own lives. It's only because no one saw them. No one knew how to treat them. And it's important to say that it's also up to the soldiers themselves, that we have to educate young people when they go to the army, and not only to the army, because PTSD meets us in in all sort of places in our life. It can be sexual assault, it can be car accident, losing a child. No one prepare us to those kind of um, to deal with such severe incidents that we meet. And some of us are more sensitive than others. They have a sensitive skin, and those things can influence us badly. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that educate people to understand that although we are men, let's say if we're talking about guys, but not only, but if although we think that we are strong, we are soldiers, you know, we can get shattered. And we have to admit it to ourselves. This is the first steps, as they say, in other situation like for drug addicts or other problems. You have first to admit that you have it in order to take care of yourself. And if we cannot admit because we are ashamed of our situation. This is an expression I talk a lot about, shame, because when a guy or when a person is ashamed of his situation, he will not want to take care of himself. He cannot even admit it to himself. No, not not admitting it to others. That's the obvious. Yeah, I always suggest that it's like having a colon cancer test. If you are afraid and you are ashamed to be tested because they have to, you know, check your butt, and we are men, we cannot be dealt like this. It's a shame. Then you don't test and you die. Okay, from cancer. It's the same like PTSD. If you
Oh,
will not admit it,
uh-huh.
yes, sorry.
Okay. So I have to ask then, if you suffered after your tour duty, is it safe to say that practically everybody suffered from it?
I think that it's not like it's surely not everybody, because I think people are they are alike, but they are also so different. Okay, they are different by DNA, and they are by nature, and they are also different by the experience they felt during their childhood, and the family they raised them. Uh, my son is learning now psychology, and he's all the time giving me some, Dad, that this mental situation is like this. And a few days ago, he said something interesting. He told me, that schizophrenia, which is the maybe one of the worst mental diseases or mental illness or mental situation that a person can have in psychology. Um, they say, I was thinking that so much genetic involved in it. And he said, yes, there is genetic, but genetic, they showed that it's only like 10%. But they did show that if you grow up in a very warm, supportive environment in your family, then the chances you will develop schizophrenia, even if you have the risk of the DNA risk is very low, meaning we change with so many things, and so many people are growing in in bad families, in families where the parents are not functional, in houses that are very poor and cannot provide nutrition or warmth or support for the kid or for the children, and um, then it influences us in the for the rest of our life. And for me, I feel I'm very, very sensitive. It showed that, at the bottom line, I became an artist, I became an author, and I always knew I'm sensitive. And I guess some people that are more sensitive than others are more injured in the army than others, or are more options that it's more optional for them to be hurt
Sure.
by extreme events than others.
Okay. Um, is it also safe to say that with the things going on in your region of the world, is that like desensitizing to everybody? Like everybody isn't so stressed out about what's going on anymore, even though it's terrible. But people in your region are kind of like, it is what it is, you know.
I
Are
think that it's something that maybe people out of Israel think, you know, uh, because they don't know how it is to live here and experience what, for instance, we and our neighbors, not only us, also the Palestinians and also other neighbors countries have suffered in the last couple of years, and the last 70 or 80 or 100 years of conflict that Israel is having in this region. And I wrote a book. A dog is maybe when we talk among ourselves, it seems like it's a war novel, like it's all quiet on the Western Front, or major novels like this where you talk about what's happening in the during war. But actually, Dog is not a war a novel. Dog is what happens after the war is over, and the dust lays down, and people think, so now we can breathe again. There's no sirens. There's no all the time in the news, young men killed, young men and women, and all the atrocities you see all over. It's all gone. But there are so many people that are left damaged, and damage that you don't see.
yes,
You cannot see PTSD like you see a lost arm or a lost
yes,
leg or injury that we are used to from. And this is why it is also shameful for us, in a sense, for our PTSD friends. In Israel now, we call it's called alumei krav in Hebrew. Alumei krav is like bombshell traumatized, like veterans that have been in combat
trauma.
PTSD are called alumei krav. But when they talk about us in the media in Israel, they are trying to use the term in Hebrew Yahalomei Krav instead of Alumei Krav. Why? Because Yahalom is a diamond. So
Mm,
we are not a PTSD combat. We are damaged diamonds. Okay, so they want. This is
uh,
how society wants to hug now
mm,
people that are injured in PTSD in the army, and that's why I'm interviewing to any podcast or any social network or any press that want to talk with me in Israel or in the US now, because it is so important, this issue, the awareness for people to understand that if they came from back from the war and they didn't lose an arm, but they were damaged in their soul. They are still heroes, you know. They are still damaged. They are still they can be handicapped no less than any other injury in the army. So
Mm.
it is so important for us to educate people to understand this.
Hmm. Okay. So, wow. Uh, s- so damaged diamonds. That's that's deep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, how are you now?
I'm for the like my big collapse was during COVID. Meaning until COVID happened, the pandemic, I was handling myself with alcohol and drugs. So I was learning my first degree, and I met my wife, my wonderful wife Eleanor, and had our three kids, and raised a business, and start writing books also, and I didn't admit, you know, my wife said, you attack me at night, you scream, you have nightmares, and I'm like, ah, don't worry, everyone have it, it's not only me. And during COVID, my teammates started to get together again, and they collected everybody, and already started to feel anxious and anxiety when I joined this group, WhatsApp group, and when we met, I met my friend that was in the that I shot in the army, and my teammates that together we talk about some of the stuff we saw and did, and I came back and everything collapsed for me, exactly like my protagonist Geller. And I started to not sleep and not eat, and I was depressed. And the most important for me was I was in anxiety and panic attack for weeks, for months, that I didn't know even how to medicate it. Only then I understood that it's connected to the army. It's crazy. After 25 years, and only then I made the move of suing the defense ministry and getting my rights. And today I'm not using any drugs. I'm not drinking. I'm medicated by psychiatric medication to study to get balanced, you know, and trying to balance myself as much as possible. I think my writing career is helping me a lot to process what happened and to give me some kind of balance. I'm also writing in Made in America in the US. It's like an online magazine which deals with mental issues, you know, with criticism to the system. So I'm regularly writing there. You can find me if you're looking at Made in America, Yishay Ron, so you can find all my articles there. And basically, I'm more or less fine. I'm trying to, you know, there are bad days. You probably know it, you know, all of us know it. There's bad days. So you take more benzos and more stuff that will calm you down, and there's better days which you say for 1 second, wow, I'm regular, you know, I'm a person again, and you hope to God that it will last, and you will the next day will be the same.
Yeah.
But I think that for me at least, it helps me very much. First of all, my loving family and supporting family, and of course, the writing career, which you know, um, make me busy in something which is so important for me and for society, and I think it gives me the reason, you know, to continue and to as they say, the reason to live.
Yes.
You need a reason. And for me, it's like it gave me a whole new horizon to talk about my PTSD and to enlighten others to the symptoms, to recognize. And you know, in Judaism, we have in Hebrew another word which called, another expression which is called tikkun olam. It means repairing the world. And what do I mean? I want people that will read my book, Dog, to understand the um, the PTSD, to understand veterans that returns from the army, PTSD, or other situation in our life. And I want people to, when they stop in the stop line in the city and drug addicts come to them begging for money, I don't want them to think immediately, oh, I have to close fast the window, they're dirty, they are criminals, I will call the police. You know, I want us to see the weak links in our society. All those people that are begging in the street, that are shooting themselves heroin or smoking crack, that are stealing because they need the money for those drugs, that are prostitute their body, those women that and men that are prostituting their body, selling their body, they don't want to do it. In, you know, almost 100%, it's people that are the weakest link in society. They are carrying on themselves a sack of traumas that made them come to this place where they are. And I want people to read my book and to look at those transparent people
Hmm.
with compassion, and instead of calling the police, calling social welfare and helping those people. And tikkun olam is this expression in Hebrew that say that if you do a little bit, and I do a little bit, and our neighbor is doing a little bit, even if it's smiling to those people, even if it's having a small conversation like Doris in my book. She didn't know that Geller was an officer, but she was still kind to him. And she still offered help. Why? Because she herself was PTSD. She herself lost her husband and a son in the book. And she accepted Geller for what he is, and not only for what he was, a decorated officer in the army. She knew him as a drug addict, and
Mm.
what she did is tikkun olam. So this is a very, very important thing. I want people that read Dogs to understand and to practice themselves, you know, to treat those people in our society that needs help more than anything else, you know, need
Got you.
warm.
Got you. Uh, how can people contact you to get information on your book?
So first of all, people can look me up, Yishay Ron, in Google it. It's all over now. It's no problem. Yishay Ron book Dog. They sell it in Amazon. They sell it in Barnes and Nobles and everywhere online. And they can contact me directly to my website also, which is ishayishiron.com, and my social networks, which I'm sure that you will tag me, and we can tag each other in this episode, which I'm very honored to be your guest in.
Likewise,
And
likewise.
I really hope that people will buy the book, read it, and will have the insights of what it is to be a PTSD and to have PTSD around us, to understand what it's like.
Yes. Yishay Ron.
Ishi,
All right.
Ron. And
All right.
you and I are friends already, so you call me Ishi.
Yishi. Okay.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you,
so
sir.
much, my
Thank you so
friend. It
much
was
for taking the
very
time. Thank you.
It was pleasure for me to be here on your show, and I wish you good health and a lot of success.
Thank you. You as well, sir. You be
Thank
well.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you, man.
All right.
We'll
Bye
be
bye
in
now.
touch. Bye bye.
Yes, we will be. Bye bye.